It always starts the same way. He meets her. She smiles. She laughs at his jokes. She touches his arm. And in that moment, he feels something stir inside him that he hasn't felt in years, perhaps ever. He thinks she sees me, but the truth is far darker. She doesn't see him. She sees possibility, a blank canvas, an actor she might cast into the private drama of her own imagination. And slowly, quietly, almost without noticing, he begins to hand himself over to her, piece by piece, decision by decision, compromise by compromise, until one day, he looks in the mirror and realizes he doesn't recognize the man staring back. Jung warned us about this. He called it a possession of the soul, not by demons or spirits, but by illusions, illusions of love, illusions of completion, illusions of validation. At first he feels powerful. She adores him. She clings to his words. She says things no one else has ever said. You're different. You're special. You're the one. And he believes it. But slowly she begins to test him. Tiny comments, small requests, subtle disapprovals. She wants him to change how he dresses, how he spends his time, and he obeys. He convinces himself this is love, sacrifice, compromise, partnership. But Jung's warning cuts deeper. When a man bends his soul for affection, he does not gain love. He loses himself. She doesn't even need to demand it. His fear of losing her drives him to carve away every rough edge of his personality until nothing sharp remains. The irony? The smoother he becomes, the less she respects him. Carl Jung spent his life studying the unconscious, the hidden realm beneath our awareness that shapes our thoughts, choices, and desires. He discovered that in love, men and women rarely meet each other as they are. Instead, they project inner fantasies onto one another. The woman projects her animus, the masculine figure living inside her unconscious. The man projects his anima, the feminine figure that haunts his dreams. And here lies the danger. When a man meets a woman, he often believes she is the answer to his emptiness. He sees her not as she is, but as the goddess within him, the healer, the muse, the mother of his longing. This projection blinds him. It makes him surrender not only his body, but his very will. He calls it love. Jung called it possession. Every man is trained from birth to seek approval. First from his mother, then from teachers, later from society, and finally from women. The message is the same: be good, be nice, be chosen. So when he enters a relationship, he sees it as the ultimate validation. She chose him. Out of all the men, she picked him. And he confuses that choice with love. But here's the truth. She did not choose him. She chose the version of him that fit her projection. And the moment he no longer fits the script, the role ends. This is why so many men feel blindsided when the woman who once adored them grows cold, distant, and resentful. They think, what did I do wrong? But the answer is brutal. He stopped performing the role she cast him for. Women sense weakness instinctively, not weakness of body, but weakness of spirit. And nothing kills attraction faster than a man who betrays himself. When he puts her above his purpose, she feels it. When he agrees to things he doesn't believe in just to keep her, she notices. When he lives for her validation instead of his own soul, her respect quietly evaporates. At first, she tolerates him. Then she resents him. Finally, she leaves him, not because he was too kind, not because he wasn't enough, but because he stopped being himself. And Jung's words echo: the man who gives up his individuality for love is not loved. He is pitied. He is used. He is discarded. Jung wrote of archetypes, timeless patterns of human behavior that live in our collective unconscious. The man who loses himself in love does not become a lover. He becomes a puppet. Every smile he wears, every apology he utters, every compromise he makes is not born of his will but of his fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of standing alone. But here's the paradox. The more he fears losing her, the more certain it becomes that he will, because no woman can respect a man who refuses to respect himself. And so he dances, not as a man, but as a mask, performing the role of the good partner, the safe choice, the nice guy. But masks are fragile. They slip, they crack, and once the illusion shatters, there is no going back. Women do not consciously plan this. Most are not even aware of it. But at the deepest level, the feminine instinct is drawn to strength, to presence, to individuality. A man who molds himself into whatever she desires may gain her compliance but never her devotion. Because devotion cannot be given to weakness, affection cannot survive without respect, and love cannot breathe in the absence of truth. The modern man thinks that putting her first will win her heart. But what it wins at best is her tolerance. And once her respect dies, her love will not be far behind. Jung had a name for this tragic pattern: self-betrayal. He wrote that the man who ignores his own inner development, who refuses the lifelong task of individuation, becomes enslaved to the projections of others. He bends himself like wet clay into whatever shape is demanded of him. He becomes a mirror, reflecting back what he thinks she wants to see. But mirrors do not inspire desire. They inspire contempt. And so modern men keep repeating the same tragedy. They sacrifice their edge, their fire, their authenticity for a woman's approval. And in doing so, they lose the very thing that made them worthy of love in the first place. Why do men fall into this trap? Because they believe a lie whispered by both culture and their own unconscious that love will complete them. Jung warned of this lie. He taught that wholeness cannot be found in another. The anima, the feminine image inside every man, makes him believe that she, this woman, will heal the emptiness within him. But no woman can carry that weight. No woman can be the vessel of his soul. When he hands her that burden, she must eventually drop it. And when she does, he calls her cold, cruel, ungrateful. But in truth, she simply gave back what never belonged to her. Beneath every failed relationship, every man abandoned, every heart shattered, lies a darker truth: dependence. Not dependence on her body, not dependence on her presence, but dependence on her validation. He needs her to tell him he matters. He needs her to reflect back his worth. He needs her to give him permission to feel like a man. And this, Jung warned, is the root of the tragedy. Because the moment your manhood is outsourced, it can be revoked. And it will be revoked when she senses that you cannot stand without her. Love is a mirror. That's the truth most men never learn. When she adores you, you feel powerful. Not because you've changed, but because her eyes reflect back an image of strength. When she withdraws, you feel small, not because you are less, but because her eyes no longer confirm your worth. This is the trap. When your soul depends on her gaze, you live and die by a reflection. But Jung warned that the mirror is treacherous. It shows not what is real, but what is projected. And when the projection shifts, as it inevitably does, you will find yourself broken, confused, begging the mirror to show you the man you once believed you were. Why do men cling so desperately to love that diminishes them? Because they fear the alternative, themselves. Jung wrote that every man carries a shadow, the hidden parts of his psyche he denies, represses and buries. In solitude, the shadow rises. It whispers doubts. It exposes wounds. It reminds him of every insecurity he thought he escaped. And so he runs into work, into entertainment, and most of all, into women. Because when she smiles at him, he can forget the shadow. He can pretend, if only for a while, that he is whole. But this illusion cannot last. Because no woman can silence the shadow forever. The only way out is through. Jung called the cure individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. It is not about rejecting love, but about refusing to lose yourself within it. It is not about dominance over women, but about sovereignty over yourself. It is not about cutting off desire, but about mastering it. Individuation demands that a man stop chasing validation and instead turn inward, confronting his fears, his wounds, his shadow. It demands that he build his life not around her approval, but around his own deepest truth. And here is the paradox. The man who no longer needs her approval is the only man she can truly respect, because he does not bend, he does not break, he does not betray himself for love. He stands whole, complete, real. Jung described individuation as a kind of death. Not the death of the body, but the death of illusions. The death of the false self that sought only to be chosen. The death of the mask worn to please. The death of the puppet strings that made him dance. This death is terrifying. It feels like loneliness. It feels like rejection. It feels like the collapse of everything he thought gave him value. But beyond that death lies something greater: rebirth. The rebirth of a man who no longer confuses love with slavery. The rebirth of a man who can stand alone without crumbling. The rebirth of a man who chooses himself, first, always, unapologetically. Here is the tragedy. Most men will never take this path. They will keep bending, keep breaking, keep sacrificing themselves on the altar of validation. They will call it compromise. They will call it devotion. They will even call it love. But Jung had another word for it: possession. Possessed by the anima, possessed by projection, possessed by the fear of solitude. And so, generation after generation, men keep repeating the same cycle: adored, then tolerated, then resented, then abandoned. Each time wondering what went wrong, each time refusing to see that the problem was not love, but their willingness to vanish within it. But there are a few, rare but real, who choose differently. A man who faces his shadow cannot be seduced by projections. A man who chooses his soul cannot be enslaved by validation. A man who walks the path of individuation becomes untouchable, not cold, not arrogant, not heartless, but rooted, whole, alive. This man does not beg for love. He does not mold himself to keep it. He does not hand over his soul for affection. And paradoxically, this is the man women long for most, because he cannot be controlled, because he does not need them, because his love, when he gives it, is real, not born of fear but of strength. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And nowhere is this more true than in love. Most men will do anything to avoid facing the silence of themselves. They will give their lives away, their time, their energy, their dreams, all for the illusion of being loved. But Jung's warning remains. Love without individuation is not love. It is possession. It is slavery. It is the slow death of the soul. And until men learn to stand alone, they will never stand at all. So ask yourself now, are you living as a man or as a mask? Are you choosing love, or are you begging for validation? Have you kept your soul, or have you given it away piece by piece until nothing remains? The truth is harsh, but it is also liberating. You do not become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. And until you do, you will keep losing yourself in love again and again, never realizing that the only person you were meant to meet, the only soul you were meant to complete, was your own.